the classical line, the DB25. Here is the last one, the GMT, Stradivarius. So the Stradivarius is the 42 millimeters. Do you remember the Stradivarius?
No.
No. Okay, I will take one.
Yeah.
You like the dial?
Yeah. I mean, it's showing the stars, but I'm curious which stars. Maybe we can ask them. Or maybe just random stars, I don't know.
So that's
I do remember this one. Yeah.
So the 42 millimeters with the starry sky.
Yeah.
Here we have the 42 also millimeters, but with the GMT.
Yeah.
You can see under the microball,
Yeah.
the microsphere, the GMT. And the microsphere is day and night indicator. So at night it's move. So day and night.
Ah, crazy. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
So here you have the little starry sky.
Yeah.
And the ring after it's the date.
Cool. That's
Of course you have the blue steel hands,
Yeah.
and on the back you have the microlight decoration on it.
Yeah.
With the balance wheel with the titanium and white gold insert with the trip parachute shock absorber system.
Yeah. Okay. Is this a specific star? Are there specific stars, or is it the star
You can
above
personalize.
Geneva, or?
That one is the foundation of the manufacturer.
Okay.
It's in Lauberson.
Liberson. Okay.
Yeah, but you can choose, of course, if you give me a date and a location, you can choose your sky.
Oh.
You have the DB28, but we have made the DB kind of two turbine. So the two,
Okay.
because it's turning
Okay.
both
So
sides.
it's a double movement then? So it's two movements inside?
No, it's
Just
one
with
movement,
two
but two dial. And the particularity is that you have one very classical movement
Wow.
with hours and seconds,
Yeah.
and one very contemporary,
Yeah.
and it's with the tourbillon on it. So you can choose if you prefer to have one day maybe the modern one, contemporary, or the classical one.
Definitely.
And when you put it on the wrist, it's adapted on the wrist, so it's very comfortable.
Oh, okay. That's cool. We need to photograph this one. This one is the old one, this one is the new one. Oh, okay. This that should know.
But that one is quite the best seller, it's not limited edition. So.
Okay. Wow.
And that piece is limited to 10.
10 pieces? Is this like a showing piece, or is this 1 out of 10, this watch?
No,
I'm holding?
it's a showing piece.
That's a showing piece.
No worries.
Could be.
Non mais là j'ai pas mangé. Ah, c'est pas grave. Ouais, volontiers. Ouais, s'il te plaît. Je meurs de soif.
This is like more showing off, and this is like more, hey. I'm more than
Non mais
humble
laisse
guy
tomber.
for $280,000 watch. Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating. Because you have all these complications, it's all mechanical.
Yes,
There's
everything
no
is
battery or something in it.
made in-house.
Yeah. And it's in-house, yeah. Okay. Ah, okay, so you have to
You
hold
need-
it?
yeah, hold it.
Okay. That's cool.
Why are we presenting something different? Well, typically in these Geneva Watch Days, you guys see a lot of watches, and we love watches, of course, but there's a point where maybe you start saturating a bit, right? So we think, okay, why not present something a bit different? And that's why very often in these fairs, these shows, we present clocks, something unusual for you. This is the fruit of a very long, quite a long collaboration now with another company, because we make watches, of course. We don't know how to make clocks. The company is called L'Épée. Maybe you've heard of them. L'Épée 1839. They're one of the, well, as the name says, 1839. Very old, long-standing company, 180 years now. Originally from France, but now based in Switzerland. And they are absolute experts in clocks. So a few years ago, in fact 7 years ago, we teamed up with them. At the time, they were making clocks more along those lines. That's not a L'Épée clock, but it's something that was in the suite here.
One of those clocks. Yeah.
No, but that was pretty much what the collection we discovered at the time. Beautifully made, you know, very traditional and so on, but very, very classic. To not say old-fashioned.
Yeah.
So we came up to them and said, listen, you know, we love your work, we love your expertise, of course we love mechanics. Would you agree to combine the creativity, the sort of contemporary spirit of MB&F with your traditional approach of clockmaking? We can do something cool together. Fortunately, they said yes, and we showed them a first drawing, which became the first clock we made. We had no idea if people would like it. It was a big success. This was in 2014. That led to a second clock, a third clock, a fourth clock, and here we are 7 years later and 14 clocks later.
Wow.
So on average 2 new pieces every year. It's become a very big portion of L'Épée's production. In fact, it is now the majority of their production. So they still make some traditional clocks, but it's a small portion of their business.
Yeah.
Now they mainly make these. One of the previous robots we made together was Balthazar, for example.
Oh, crazy! I
robot
saw
clock.
that.
Yeah. This was a few years ago.
Yeah.
So it really changed, a lot for L'Épée. And by the way, when we met them 7 years ago, it was a bit difficult for them, the business. Now they're doing better thanks to this more contemporary approach of clockmaking.
Yeah.
So a nice win-win story, win-win situation for them and for us. For us, it's super interesting, and in particular on the creative side, because it's a way to multiply our production capacity, because basically we delegate the whole engineering and production side to L'Épée, while still keeping the creativity side.
Yeah.
And also, for Max Busser, the head of the company, who's our creative director, it's extra freedom, because when you make a watch, Max is, I think, very creative, but he has 2 limitations which he has to take into consideration. One is, of course, the size. It has to be wearable on the wrist. And even when we make something like the Bulldog, it's, you know, a pretty crazy watch. It has to fit on your wrist.
Yeah.
It has to be wearable. If it's not wearable, it's useless. And a lot of people are surprised, in fact, when they see a piece like the Bulldog. When they see the photos, they're like, okay, maybe cool, but totally unwearable on the wrist. It's not true. If you put it on your wrist, and feel free to try it on, you'll see that it actually
And to be
fits.
fair, I thought the same.
Of course, and it's normal. It's a normal reaction. But that is one limitation.
Yeah.
We really need
Can
to
I put that on?
Of course, yeah, please. The easiest is to put it on your knee, upside down, if you don't mind. Yeah, there you go. And then pull it straight.
Got it.
So yeah, that's the first limitation. When Max creates even a crazy piece like the Bulldog, it needs to fit on your wrist. It needs to be ergonomic. And the second limitation, which is not so visible, but in fact technically it's a very strong limitation, is the water resistance. All of our watches have a minimum, sometimes more, but a 30 meters water resistance. Because that's a guarantee, as you know, of dust protection, humidity, and so on. And when you make a case like the Bulldog, water resistance is not so easy to achieve. You need to take that into consideration. Going back to the clocks, those 2 limitations, size and water resistance, you forget entirely.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of extra freedom, and that's why we enjoy making these clocks so much.
I bet. And it is wearable.
You see? It's not your conventional watch for sure. You need maybe to be a little brave to wear it, because you'll get some mixed reactions. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, and that's perfectly okay with us. We know we have very polarizing creations. But in pure ergonomic terms, it's absolutely wearable. So, why clocks? I just explained, and why 14? Well, because we love making these. This is our newest, which we call Orb. So, co-creation between L'Épée and MB&F. It is a clock, even though I guess it's first and foremost more of a art object or design object, like a little sculpture. And by the way, the people who buy these pieces, our customers, they tell us, when we put this in our office or in our home, it's like a magnet. People enter the space and they go straight to this because it's intriguing, it makes noise, people are not quite sure what it does, so people want to know. So yes, it's a clock, it gives you the time up here in a rather classic way with a dial. Here, in addition to telling time visually, there's also an audio component, and you can see the hammer right there. So that's like a church clock, meaning that at every hour, if it's 11 o'clock, it will ring 11 times.
Yeah.
At the hour, or as I just did, on demand. So I can push this trigger here on the side and then it gives me the current hour. So either way. And by the way, in case you were wondering, yes, you can turn it off.
Yeah.
So during the night, there's a little switch there somewhere. You can simply flip the switch and it's silent, except for TikTok, of course. That's much more
Is this
acceptable.
just a stand, or can you like...
You can play with it.
Okay.
Because there's very often with our creations, there's a little surprise or a playful element. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the bulldog, but the bulldog, for example, it has these jaws underneath.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw
Those
that.
are not just decoration. Those have a function.
Okay, what
And the
is
function of the jaws is the power reserve indicator.
Oh.
When the jaws are open, it's full of energy. It's ready to bite you, basically.
Yeah.
And slowly, over the next 48 hours, roughly, those jaws will close. And when it's closed, it's time to feed the bulldog, meaning to pump it up with energy again.
Yeah.
And that's something we like very often at MB&F, especially with the horological machines and the clocks. There's always something a little unexpected, a little surprise.
This is also what people expect from you guys, right? Like,
They kind of expect the unexpected, which is a bit of a challenge. There's a bit of pressure for us because it's like, okay, how do we surprise them this time?
yeah.
But yes, to answer
When
your
I think
question,
about MB&F, it's always like crazy watches, like different type of watches, you know?
thank you for the compliments.
Yeah, that is a compliment.
So yes, there's definitely a playful element.
Yeah.
These petals, as you could call them, they are articulated, as you can see now from the system. And I can actually place these in different positions. For example, if I close this section here, and I add this little magic saucer, I can display, for example, the clock like that.
Okay.
And it becomes a very different creature.
Yeah.
So we had like almost a flower or a lotus blossom or something. Now we have something that looks a bit like an insect or some crazy alien. I can place these a bit differently, of course, if I want to. So really, you can interact with the clock. And if I go a step further and I pick this up and I decide to close it entirely, then you understand why this piece is called orb, which means sphere, basically. It's a synonym of sphere, because there we have the perfect globe, basically, the perfect orb. Which, by the way, can also be displayed in this way. So if you want something a bit more minimalistic, very pure, you can have it like this. It also protects the movement.
Yeah. Also looks like an eye.
Exactly. That was, in fact, the main inspiration by the designer. In this case, two designers, and both are called Max.
Okay.
So our own Max Busser, of course, who's the head of the company and the creative director. But for these objects, the clocks, anything that's not a watch at MB&F, we've always worked with young design graduates. They come from a school here in Lausanne called ECAL, which has quite a good reputation now in the design field. And the idea is we take, as I said, a young graduate
Yeah.
on an internship for between 6 and 12 months. And they spend that time with MB&F. They don't touch a watch,
Yeah.
but they do these. And it's a great stepping stone for
So
them.
this one is also a creation of those.
All of the interns, exactly. So there have been several.
Yeah.
The first guy to do this was quite a few years ago, was a
Yeah.
Chinese student from Lecal always.
Yeah.
His name was Xin Wang. He made the first series of clocks. Then we had another guy. At one point we had an Italian, Stefano, who was very good. Then we had a young lady from France. Then we had someone else, I think. And then for this, German guy called Maximilian Mertens. So that's why I said two Maxes,
Yeah.
Max Busser and Max Mertens.
Yeah.
And so what happens is they work on several projects. He actually designed Max Mertens with Max 3 clocks with us, which have all been produced now. This is the third
Yeah.
one. And then usually what happens is they set up their own studio, they become independent.
Yeah.
So Max is now in Berlin, where he has his own Studio Mertens. It's
Yeah.
called design workshop.
Yes, because usually you have smaller dates or you have the date which is not really very centered because you need to have as possible. And so to have very elegant watches looking very simple,
Yeah.
in fact being more complex.
Yeah.